And, our next presenter is Mariarosa Cutillo from UNFPA. And you'll notice that we're not using the stage when there were only 3 people up there, since this is the Global Health and Safety. A chair fell off. We didn't think having 7 people on the stage made sense. So Mariarosa is with UNFPA and will be presenting on their partnership approach.
Hi, good evening, and thank you for this invitation. Thank you, Bruce. I am Italian, so I need to be moderated at a certain point, and we are a little bit late, so please make me some signal at some point. So, thank you very much for this. I'm the new Chief of Strategic Partnerships of UNFPA. I've been here in New York for 4 months. I come from the private sector. I was head of sustainability in a company that I love very much, which is Benetton. And I'm still here, and I hope to have fresh eyes on public-private partnerships for a long time. But I want to start with a very important concept for me. Now, I'm sure that this morning the Special Advisor to the Secretary General of the United Nations has made it very clear. The Sustainable Development Goals and the Agenda 2030 is something on which we can't fail anymore. 2030 will be a date that, we can't miss. At UNFPA, as you perhaps know, the United Nations Population Fund deals with all the issues concerning population, all the issues concerning sexual and reproductive health, women empowerment, collection of data, everything which has to do with the enhancement of population and young people. And we have a very clear mandate from the Secretary General of the United Nations. He was very clear in September, and he said, you cannot fail, especially on one thing, which is maternal health. So this is the core business on which we are very, very much engaged now. I just want to give you a figure, which is perhaps a figure that you know, but it's still worthwhile recalling. There are 800 women dying every day by pregnancy and cause-related related causes to pregnancies. I don't think we can afford this. Perhaps we're not going even to meet the target of 2030, but we have to do the best we can. So that is the real core business. I speak a little bit of business language now, but I think it's useful to give you the idea of being focused and of the importance of having everybody, all the stakeholders on board on this. Not to disperse the message, but to be consolidated on our brand, in this case, the UNFPA brand, and work on that. We are lucky to have already, I would say, when I came to New York, I found an amazing amount of work already being done within UNFPA, with the private sector. But it's not enough in terms of engagement, in terms of stakeholders to be involved. And you would say, yes, this is a very obvious consideration, because the Sustainable Development Goals say involve everybody in their own capacity, in their own role, in contributing to the SDGs, which is fantastic in theory. In practice, it can become very complex. And I tell you why, because there's a problem of language. It looks like a simple problem, but it's a huge problem. The UN has a language. The private sector has a language. Academia has a language. And putting together all these languages is the real challenge. I will go to the presentation then, but I wanted to make you this preliminary remarks, because I face them every day. So, and this challenge has to do with the figure. I think that there's a cost for the SDGs. No? It's not for free. It costs about perhaps $5 trillion per year to be multiplied by 15 years. So it looks like $75 trillion, okay? Where are we going to take that money from? We are facing also a situation where we have our donors, countries donate. I mean, they're very well committed, but it's not enough. So somewhere else, we will have to find that amount of money. And it's not only an issue of money, because luckily enough, now the private sector, especially companies, are not only dealing with philanthropy, they have evolved. Now corporate social responsibility within a serious company that really is socially and environmentally committed is something else. It has to do with operations, and in fact, we have an amazing program, for example, with the United Nations Foundation on women's health in the workplace, in supply chains where women work every day, where they need sexual and reproductive health, where they need empowerment, where they need education. So it has to do with the operations of the private sector. So there's a number of ways through which you can engage the private sector. But still, you have to find a common language. And still, let's make it very clear, and let's not hide behind a finger, that a partnership is something which is a win-win situation. There's a very interesting trend now. I'm really looking at it with a lot of curiosity and learning. I'm curious, I want to grow on that in my knowledge. There's the trend of innovation. Now, we are called to work on innovation as UN agencies with the private sector, with companies, which is fantastic. But it's a challenge, because talking of innovation, sometimes it's even difficult for a company, and the company does it every day. And for the United Nations, talking about innovation sometimes risks to be talking about unicorns and rainbows. Is that the right expression? No, I confuse it with Capricorns and rainbows. So let me give you some examples of what we do. Well, these ones you know, no? And let me call your attention. You spoke about this morning, but just to go back a little bit to that. What we're working on is especially Sustainable Development Goal number 5, so gender equality, access to health, women empowerment. This is what UNFPA is working on. And again, you will be very familiar with goal number 17, no? The partnerships for the goals. Perhaps you remember that the Sustainable Development Goals are, let's say, the great evolution of the Millennium Development Goals. Now, in the Millennium Development Goals, you would have goal number 8, if I'm not mistaken, that was talking about partnerships. It was a little bit a vague goal, and this one is much more specific. It gives more ideas, let's say, of collaboration. So that's the platform we are working on, of course, as the UNFPA, but all UN agencies are equipped now to work on public-private partnerships and partnerships within the 2030 agenda. So it's a very crowded world on partnerships, where we have to kind of build alliances and whatever, and try to avoid overlappings when it's possible. This is our Dr. Babatunde. He is our Secretary General, and he made it very clear that partnerships are the base, of course, in our case, to achieve our core business. So guarantee sexual and reproductive health and avoid all these deaths caused by maternal, by complications with pregnancies. So this is our core business now, and this is probably when Ban Ki-moon made it very clear to us that that's what we have to concentrate on. Now here you have some figures. There you have the 800 women dying. Out of those 800 women dying, and these calculations are always, for me, a little bit difficult to confirm, because usually it's less than the reality, but 500 women dying every day in humanitarian context. Now, I want to go back to almost 3 weeks ago, where we had the World Humanitarian Summit in Istanbul. And it was made very, very clear by the private sector in the World Humanitarian Summit that the private sector wants to be a real actor within partnerships for sustainable development, and not a nice to have. And it was made very, very clear, especially by some companies. And one of the things that was, again, made clear is that we can't work seriously, we cannot be serious on sustainable development goals if we don't have data, which is what we're working on, because the United Nations Population Fund is the fund working on data, on census. So we need to be very serious on that. Otherwise, it's a big mistake. We risk to fail again. Here are the countries where we operate, but I wanted to go to some of the possible examples that we have been developing, especially in the past few months. I'll go to the workplace program also because we have here the Friends of the United Nations Foundation, but I wanted to recall to you the attention on this campaign. Now, when I came to New York in January from Europe, I found two programs that really impressed me in UNFPA. One was a program, a campaign, which was a little bit put in a corner, and that was called Safe Birth Even Here. And it had to do with women. I have 5 minutes. It had to do with women delivering in humanitarian context. Now, the kind of partnerships we have been developing on this is a communication partnership with Benetton. I will show you a very, very short video, if possible. But just to tell you this, in Europe, very few people, the media, speak very little about women delivering in humanitarian contexts. It looks like, and I'm a mother, women are not delivering in humanitarian or refugee contexts. So this is why we have tried to recall the attention to that through this campaign, which perhaps we will show you then. And this one, the other important thing I found, when I was working for the company before, we were looking for programs within supply chains. Perhaps some of you heard about the Rana Plaza catastrophe in Bangladesh a few years ago. So we were looking for programs to empower women and guarantee for them health in the supply chain with suppliers. So this was something that was being developed with UNFPA and that we are trying to kind of enlarge and make wider also with the United Nations Foundation. If I can have assistance just to show 1 minute of the video so that you see. Okay, and this is the first of the creative, let's say, messages we're trying to develop on this campaign. I just close the latest remark. Now, today, about perhaps 59 million girls are 10 years today. They will be 25 in 15 years. So what we're trying to do is to contribute to the fact that these girls are empowered and they can really change the world by 2030. Thank you very much.